My baby's curls were falling like dead leaves, and everybody laughed. My Aunt Lorraine stood over him with buzzing clippers, martini in one hand, while cousins filmed like it was comedy hour. She called it just a joke, but then smirked and held up my mama's old clippers, stolen from her estate, engraved with her initials, as if my son's humiliation was some kind of trophy. My boy's eyes begged me not to cry. In that moment, I swallowed my rage and smiled back at her. She thought I was broken. She had no idea I'd been keeping records all these years, and this time I was ready to use them. My name is Danielle Monroe, and I'm 45 years old. These days, I sort legal files by day and sort through Marcus's teenage dramas by night. My son Marcus, now 14, has his father Jerome's height, but my mother Evelyn's quiet strength. I've watched my Aunt Lorraine, who claims to be our family's matriarch, weave her stories for years, each one a little off, like a picture hung crooked. The memory of Mama's voice keeps me steady. Baby, there's power in keeping good records. So I did. Every inconsistency, every shifted date, every changed story, all filed away in my cream-colored folder. Lorraine thinks I've forgotten how the house passed to her, how Mama's things vanished. My fingers trace the folder's edge as I pack for tomorrow's reunion. But let me start from the beginning. I stepped into Lorraine's backyard, the late afternoon sun warming my shoulders. The usual reunion setup spread before me. Folding tables draped in dollar store tablecloths, smoke rising from Jerome's old grill that Lorraine had somehow inherited. Kids ran around wearing those plastic dollar store crowns Lorraine always handed out, like she was some kind of queen bestowing favors. You know that moment when your heart stops before your brain catches up? That's what happened when I spotted Marcus. He was sitting in one of those flimsy lawn chairs, hunched small, while Lorraine stood behind him with electric clippers buzzing in her hand. His beautiful curls, the ones that took years to learn how to properly care for, lay scattered around his feet like fallen leaves. "It's just a joke, baby," Lorraine chirped, flashing that hostess smile she'd perfected over decades of these gatherings. The same smile she'd worn when explaining why Mama's china cabinet had been accidentally sold. A ripple of snort laughs came from the cousins clustered around the punch bowl. My second cousin Tracy actually had her phone out, recording. "Have you ever seen your child trying not to cry?" Marcus's eyes met mine, shimmering with unshed tears, his throat working as he swallowed hard. My boy, who'd spent the morning carefully styling those curls, looked so small in that chair, like he was 8 instead of 14. I crossed that yard in what felt like 2 steps. My hands covered his head, what was left of it, like I could somehow protect him from what had already happened. "We're going inside," I said, my voice steady even though my fingers trembled against his scalp. As I guided Marcus toward the house, paper plates tilted down, conversations hushed. You could have heard a butterfly land on those tacky tablecloths. Lorraine followed us to the sliding glass door, martini sloshing as she gestured. "Now, Danny, don't be so sensitive. Boys need a proper haircut sometimes. I did you a favor, saved you some money at the barber." Her voice dripped sweet like artificial honey, but I didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge her, just kept walking with my hand on Marcus's shoulder. I settled him in the guest room where we were supposed to stay the night. The dim lamp buzzed like an angry bee, casting shadows that made the bare patches on his head look even worse. I'd brought him a plate of food, Mama's mac and cheese recipe that Lorraine claimed as her own, but it sat untouched next to a carefully folded napkin. "Baby, tomorrow we breathe," I whispered, pressing a kiss to his forehead. He nodded, but didn't speak. The silence hurt worse than if he'd been crying. When I stepped into the hallway, I could hear them all out there, the ice clinking in glasses, the muffled laughter starting up again like nothing had happened, like my son's dignity wasn't scattered across Lorraine's back lawn. That's when I noticed the gray case sitting on the hallway dresser. A single dark curl clung to its hinge, caught there like evidence at a crime scene. My hands were steady now as I opened it to reveal the clippers Lorraine had used. Right then, looking at those clippers, something shifted inside me. You ever have a moment when all the little things that didn't quite add up suddenly make a terrible kind of sense? I picked up the clippers, turning them over in my hands. The metal felt cold, but my blood ran colder when I saw what was etched near the base. 2 tiny letters I recognized from years of birthday cards and gentle corrections on my homework. E.M., Evelyn Monroe, my mama's initials. I lifted those clippers, letting the hall light catch the metal. Something about them seemed familiar. Too familiar. My thumb brushed over an engraving near the base, and my heart stumbled. 2 letters, worn but clear. L.J. Not L.J.? E.M. Evelyn Monroe. Mama's monogram. You know how sometimes your mind works like one of those old slide projectors? Click, click, click. Images flashing up faster than you can blink? That's what happened right then. Every single thing Mama had carefully marked with those initials. The Egyptian cotton sheets she'd saved 3 months to buy. The heavy-bottomed baking tins that made her sweet potato pies famous in 3 counties. Those German sewing scissors she'd inherited from her grandmother. All of it had vanished during probate, when Lorraine was helping organize the estate sale. Must have been misplaced, she'd say, shaking her head with that concerned look she'd perfected. You know how things get during times like these. My pulse picked up speed as the timeline clicked into place. Mama's treasures disappearing one by one. Lorraine's estate sale that somehow never had proper paperwork. And now this joke with Marcus's hair. This wasn't random. This was a message. I pulled out my phone. Hands steady now. Funny how anger can do that to you. Took 3 clear photos of the clippers next to that telling engraving. Made sure the timestamp was enabled. In situations like these, details matter. Mama taught me that, though probably not the way Lorraine thought she had. Back in the guest room, Marcus had curled onto his side, shoulders tight, even in sleep. I sat on the edge of his bed, running my fingers over what was left of his hair. "Baby," I whispered, though I knew he couldn't hear me. "Hair grows back. Love stays put. And I promise you both." I stayed there until his breathing deepened, watching his chest rise and fall in the dim light. Before heading out, I noted down the clipper's serial number in my phone. My mind was already mapping the route I'd need to take. County records first, then Mama's old lawyer's office if it was still open, and finally, the courthouse. Basement, where they kept the older files. Something in those dusty boxes would tell me what I needed to know. Ever tried to put something back exactly the way you found it when your hands are shaking with rage? I managed it, though, setting those clippers back in their case like I'd never touched them. Let Lorraine think she was still 10 steps ahead. Let her get careless. Outside on the deck, the party was still going strong. Laughter swelled and died like waves against a shore, carrying bits of conversation. Just hair, sensitive, kids these days. Lorraine stood by the railing, martini glass catching porch light like a warning beacon. When she saw me, she raised her glass and winked. Actually winked, like we were sharing some private joke. I met her eyes and said nothing. Just let the silence stretch between us like a tripwire. By morning, I'd have a plan. But right now, I needed her comfortable. Needed her thinking she'd won this round. Somewhere in my head, I heard Mama's voice. "Baby girl, sometimes you gotta let folks think they're playing chess while you're counting cards." I hadn't understood what she meant back then. Standing there on Lorraine's deck, watching her hold court over her paper plate kingdom, I finally did. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay there listening to Marcus's steady breathing. From the twin bed across the room, watching shadows crawl across the ceiling until the first hint of dawn started painting the sky. By 5:30, I had our bags packed and was easing the car door shut, Marcus still sleeping in his hoodie, head tilted against the passenger window. You ever notice how a town feels different before it's properly awake? Main Street was all empty sidewalks and locked storefronts, just the occasional delivery truck breaking the quiet. My travel mug of coffee sent up steam that caught the early light, and I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see Lorraine's car following us. But there was nothing but clear road all the way to Cousin Deanna's. "You sure you don't mind watching him?" I asked Deanna at her front door, while Marcus drowsed on her couch. The smell of banana bread drifted from her kitchen, reminding me of Sunday mornings at Mama's. "Girl, please, that boy's been my favorite since he was in diapers." Deanna squeezed my arm. "Do what you need to do. We'll be fine." The courthouse looked exactly like it had when Mama used to point it out on our drives downtown, all red brick and white columns, trying its best to look important. Inside, the air conditioning hit me like a wall, and my sandals clicked against the marble floor as I followed the signs to records and archives. The clerk behind the desk couldn't have been much older than 25, with bright blue glasses and a name tag that read Jennifer. "Probate files?" She typed something into her computer. "What's the name and year?" "Evelyn Monroe." My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Filed about 8 years ago." Jennifer nodded and grabbed a cart. "Follow me." The basement archives smelled like old paper and dust with fluorescent lights that hummed overhead. We wound through metal shelves packed with cardboard boxes until she stopped at Section M. "Here we go." She pulled out a thick folder and started sorting through it. "Monroe. Monroe. Ah." She paused, holding up a sealed envelope with a filing stamp across the flap. "This what you're looking for?" My heart did a funny little skip. "Yes. I'd like to request supervised opening, please." Jennifer got a letter opener from her cart while I filled out the necessary forms. The envelope made a soft, ripping sound as she opened it, and suddenly, there it was. Mama's will, dated just 3 months before she passed. I had to grip the edge of the cart when I saw the first page. Right there in black and white. "I, Evelyn Monroe, being of sound mind." And further down, clear as day, "Hereby bequeath my primary residence at 1247 Magnolia Street to my daughter, Danielle Monroe." Not Lorraine. Me. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the pages. Jennifer must have noticed because she quietly started noting down the chain of custody details in her logbook, giving me a moment to pull myself together. "Would you like photos?" she asked gently. "You're allowed 3 per document under our policy." I nodded, not trusting my voice. While she took the pictures on the archive's official camera, I sent a quick text to Deanna. "Running a little late. Pickup extended to afternoon." "I can have certified copies ready in about an hour," Jennifer said, carefully returning the will to its envelope. "Would you like to wait, or—" "I'll wait." No way was I leaving without those copies. When I finally stepped out onto the courthouse steps, the morning sun was high and bright. The clock tower started striking 10, each boom echoing down Main Street like it was counting out the years Lorraine had kept this hidden from me. Standing there, watching people hurry past with their coffee cups and briefcases, I realized this went so much deeper than a cruel prank with some clippers. This wasn't just about Marcus's hair or even Mama's stolen things. This was about erasing us both. First Mama's legacy, then my son's dignity. I pulled out my phone and looked at the photos Jennifer had transferred to me. The Kai. Words were still there, still real. "To my daughter, Danielle Monroe." I drove back to Lorraine's, with the certified copies burning a hole in my purse, each stoplight testing my patience. The afternoon sun blazed down on empty sidewalks, that dead time when everyone's either at work or hiding from the heat. "Could you keep him at the park another hour?" I asked Deanna over the phone. "Just need to handle something." "Take your time," she said. "We're good here." Lorraine's house looked different now, like seeing an old photo with new eyes. The wraparound porch Mama used to love, the window boxes she'd planted every spring, all of it should have been mine to tend. I squared my shoulders and headed for the back patio. Lorraine sat at the glass table under the pergola, arranging what looked like an entire deli counter on fancy platters. Prosciutto and salami curled like ribbon candy, the kind Mama used to buy us at Christmas. The ice in Lorraine's glass clinked as she looked up. "Well, look who's back." She gestured at an empty chair. "Join me?" I laid the certified copy on the table between us, careful to avoid the oil from the meats. "Found something interesting at the courthouse today." She picked up the document, reading with the same slight smile she always wore when she thought she had the upper hand. Not a single flinch, not even when she got to the part about the house. Oh, honey. She set the papers down and dabbed her lips with a napkin. These old family misunderstandings can get so messy, can't they? My skin prickled. She was too calm. Misunderstanding? I kept my voice level. That's Mama's signature, notarized, filed with the county. Lorraine reached for her phone, manicured nails clicking against the screen. And here's something else that was filed. She slid the phone across the table. The screenshots made my stomach drop. Bank transfers from church accounts to a personal one in my name, invoices for youth program supplies with inflated numbers, emails that looked like they came from me discussing kickbacks from contractors. All of it fake, all of it perfectly crafted to destroy everything I'd built. The wind picked up, rattling the ice in glasses and lifting napkins. Off plates. I thought about Marcus's private school tuition, the rent on our apartment, the 3 church programs I helped run. One whisper of financial misconduct would slam those doors shut faster than I could explain. Just some old documents I happened to find, Lorraine said, tapping her phone with one finger like a metronome. Funny how things turn up, isn't it? My hands were steady as I gathered the will and slipped it back in its folder. The patio suddenly felt too exposed, too bright. Family misunderstandings, I echoed, backing away from the table. Right. I pulled out my phone and texted Deanna. Heading back now. Please bring Marcus home. Leaving so soon? Lorraine called after me as I walked toward my car. Don't you want to stay for lunch? I kept walking. Try me, she said, just loud enough to carry. See what happens. The gravel crunched under my feet all the way to the driver's side door. I got in, closed it softly, and sat there with my hands on the wheel. Through the windshield, I could see Lorraine pick up a piece of cheese and pop it in her mouth, like she hadn't just threatened to burn my world down. I took the long way home, winding through back roads where oak trees made shadows dance on the hood. Marcus dozed in the passenger seat, hood still pulled low over his forehead. Every few minutes, my chest would tighten around that old, familiar ache. The same one I'd felt watching Mama fade in her hospital bed while Lorraine whispered about arrangements in the hallway. You ever notice how some wounds just wait their turn? They sit quiet for years. Then suddenly, there they are, fresh as yesterday. The apartment felt too small when we got in, like the walls had crept closer while we were gone. I settled Marcus on the couch, tucking his favorite blanket, the one with dinosaurs that Mama had quilted, up to his chin. He curled into it without waking, and for a moment he looked so much younger than 13. Mama's photo watched from the shelf above the TV, her smile warm and knowing. I'd taken it at her garden club meeting, right before everything went sideways. She wore her favorite yellow cardigan and held up a prize-winning orchid like it was made of gold. The folder from the courthouse felt heavy as I spread its contents across the coffee table. The will, the certified copies, the time-stamped photos of those clippers with Mama's monogram. All this proof, and still not enough to stop Lorraine from destroying everything I'd rebuilt. Maybe that's what she wanted, to see me fold like a house of cards. Keep the peace, take the hits, let her win again. It would be easier, safer for Marcus. The doorbell chimed, soft, but insistent. I wasn't expecting anyone, and these days, surprise visitors usually meant trouble. But through the peephole, I saw Miss Ruthie, Mama's best friend since grade school, standing there with her Sunday hat tilted like a battle shield. Child, you gonna leave me out here in this heat? She called through the door. When I opened it, she swept in bringing the scent of gardenias and that no-nonsense energy that had terrorized 3 generations of Sunday school students. Your Mama, she said, setting her purse down like it carried gold bricks, knew this day would come. What day? She pulled out a worn manila envelope, its flap secured with string wrapped around a button. The day you'd need these. My hand shook a little as I unwound that string. Inside were photocopies, dozens of them, showing Lorraine's signatures next to notarized exemplars. The differences jumped, out like neon signs, loops that curved wrong, pressure points that didn't match, strokes that went against natural handwriting patterns. Forensic document examiner looked these over years ago, Miss Ruthie said, tapping one particularly damning comparison. Paid him myself after your mama started getting suspicious. There was a note, too, in Mama's careful handwriting. Give to my girl when she's ready. When the time comes, she'll know. Something warm broke through the fear in my chest, like sunlight finding gaps in closed blinds. I could almost hear Mama's voice. Baby, I taught you to fight smart. Miss Ruthie, my voice caught. How long have you been holding these? Long enough. She started unpacking her purse like she was settling in for the duration. Now, you got any of that peach tea your mama taught you to make? Because we've got witness statements to write, and my throat's feeling mighty dry. I reached for my phone, pulled up the county clerk's number. The submission requirements would be specific. No room for error when you're proving fraud. Miss Ruthie? I asked while the phone rang. Would you mind staying a while? She was already heading for the kitchen, hat pin glinting like a tiny sword in the afternoon light. Child, I've been waiting 5 years to help you take that woman down. I brought cookies. You know that feeling when you're finally doing something instead of just thinking about it? When all those little pieces you've been collecting suddenly line up like soldiers ready for battle? That's how I felt sitting at my kitchen table that night, with Miss Ruthie's coffee keeping us sharp and Marcus's soft breathing drifting from the living room couch. I'd always been good with organization, had to be, raising a kid on my own. But this was different. This was personal. Each document went into my old Navy binder with the precision of a surgeon. Certified copies of Mama's will on the left, forensic signature analysis in the middle, and a timeline I'd spent hours perfecting on the right. The LJ Clipper photos, time-stamped and notarized, got their own section with close-ups of that telling monogram. You writing a book over there? Miss Ruthie asked, refilling our cups. More like building a case, I said, checking my watch. Past midnight, but who could sleep? Got to make it clear enough that even Lorraine can't twist it. Miss Ruthie's sworn statement went in last. 4 pages of detailed memories about Mama's concerns, the mysterious lost items, and Lorraine's convenient explanations. The woman had a memory like a steel trap, bless her. The county recorder's website glowed on my laptop screen as I started the electronic filing process. Some things had to be done in person. You can't trust everything to computers, as Mama used to say. But I could get the ball rolling tonight. At the top of every document, I made sure to highlight the urgency in bold red letters. Time sensitive. Potential fraudulent conveyance in progress. Below that, I detailed Lorraine's plans to sell within 30 days. Ever tried to write an email that could change everything? I must have drafted that message to the local reporter 10 times, finally settled on something simple for the subject line. Document review request, estate matter, professional, detached. No emotional language that might make them dismiss it as just another family squabble. Remember, I muttered to myself, let the evidence do the talking. I attached the key documents but held back on quotes or accusations. Better to let them connect the dots themselves. Marcus stirred on the couch around 1 a.m. Poor baby hadn't wanted to sleep in his room since the haircut. I helped him up, guided him to bed like when he was little. Mom? He mumbled as I tucked him in. My head feels weird. That's because your brain's getting more air now, I said, running my palm gently over his scalp, making you extra smart. That got me a sleepy smile. First one I'd seen since the reunion. Small victories, right? Back at the kitchen table, I fired up the printer. Every document got a backup copy, then another. Each set went into a labeled envelope with today's date written in my clearest handwriting. No room for confusion or misplacement this time. The main folder, the one I'd take to the courthouse first thing, I placed by the front door next to Marcus's backpack. Beside it, I laid out my charcoal blazer, the one with shoulders that meant business. I set 2 alarms on my phone, one for 6 a.m. to get Marcus ready for school, another for 8:30 a.m. when the county office opened. Then I double-checked them both, because some chances you don't take. Just as I reached to turn off the kitchen lamp, my phone buzzed. The screen lit up like an accusation in the dark. Both alarms hit me like hammer strikes, first for Marcus, then for the courthouse. Somewhere between pouring cereal and checking his backpack, I noticed the voicemail. The reporter wanted to meet at noon. My hands shook a little while tying Marcus's shoes, but I kept my voice steady. "New hat day after school?" I promised, and his eyes lit up just enough to get us moving. You ever notice how some mornings feel like they're running on rails? Like every step's been mapped out by something bigger than you? That's how it felt dropping Marcus at the front gates, watching him shuffle inside with his hood up. I touched the folder in my passenger seat, checked my lipstick in the rear view, and headed downtown. Miss Ruthie was already waiting outside the county office when I pulled up, her church hat angled just right. "Early bird catches the justice," she said, linking her arm through mine. The intake clerk, young guy, bright eyes, took one look at my organized tabs and actually smiled. "Making my job easy today, ma'am." He stamped every page with mechanical precision while I watched each thump like a heartbeat. "Case number 2023 CV 4891, he announced, handing me a receipt stack. "Temporary hold request is noted here." He pointed to a yellow form. "And these are your next steps for the review process." I laid out the Clipper photos next, that damning LJ monogram clear as day. "These are time-stamped from the reunion," I explained. "Part of a pattern of misappropriated items from the original estate." Miss Ruthie nodded along, her presence making everything feel more official. The clerk added the photos to our file, careful with the corners. The newspaper office was all glass and hustle, smelling like coffee and printer toner. The reporter, Sarah Chen according to her nameplate, had that sharp look journalists get when they smell a story. "Mind if I verify these with the clerk?" she asked, already dialing on speaker. Each confirmation beep felt like a small victory. I stuck to facts like they were lifelines. The will was dated March 15, 2019. Initial probate filing shows April 3, 2019. Estate sale receipts begin May 1, 2019. No emotion, no color, just dates and documents while her pen flew across the notepad. The Sunday feature would run this week, pending legal review and editor. "Approval," she said finally. "We'll need comment from all parties, of course." I thought of Lorraine reading her morning paper over that first martini. Fair enough? The kids' clothing store was quiet when I stopped for Marcus's cap. Soft cotton, dark blue with gray stripes. Something to help him feel normal again at recess. The cashier wrapped it in tissue paper like a gift. My laptop was waiting at home, inbox blinking. Subject line: urgent. Inquiry pending sale. The first line was standard legal speak. The second one, though, that's the one that froze my fingers over the keyboard. This office has received notice of potential fraudulent conveyance regarding property at 1421 Magnolia Street. All pending transactions are hereby suspended pending review. I stared at those words like they might vanish if I blinked. Suspended pending review. 4 syllables that felt like pure oxygen after weeks of drowning. My hands weren't quite steady when I forwarded that email, first to the clerk with a quick "please confirm receipt," then to Sarah Chen with "update for your records." You know that feeling when something huge shifts, but the world just keeps spinning like normal? That's how it felt picking up Marcus from school. All these parents chatting about homework and soccer practice while my heart was doing backflips. "Got something for you, baby," I said, pulling out that tissue-wrapped package. His fingers worked the paper careful and slow. Some habits from Mama still showed up in the sweetest ways. When he saw that cap, a real smile broke through. First one I'd seen since the Clippers. "Pizza night?" I offered, and his eyes lit up. "For good paperwork," I added, mostly to myself. The sun was setting by the time my phone buzzed. The clerk's number. I stepped onto the back porch, watching Marcus arrange his pepperoni into perfect rows through the kitchen window. "Mrs. Monroe? Good news. The administrative hold is officially in place." The clerk's voice had that satisfied tone people get when things work like they should. "No sale can proceed until our investigation wraps up. Given the evidence submitted, that's likely to take several weeks at minimum." My eyes burned, but these tears felt different, like rain after drought instead of storms that destroy. I must have thanked him 4 times before hanging up. Then I called Miss Ruthie. "The Lord doesn't sleep on justice," she said, and I could hear her smile through the phone. "Your mama's watching, baby girl. She sees you standing tall." Back inside, Marcus was halfway through his second slice. I pulled my chair close, trying to find the right words. "Remember how I told you Grandma's house got mixed up in some grown-up business after she passed?" He nodded, sauce at the corner of his mouth. "Well, Mama left some special papers saying that house was supposed to stay in our family. Stay with us." I watched his face carefully. "And now some nice people at the courthouse are helping make sure that happens. Could we visit? Like before?" His voice was small but hopeful. "Maybe soon, baby. Maybe real soon." I squeezed his hand, remembering how he used to race through those rooms, Mama laughing from her rocking chair. My phone lit up, unknown number. I let it ring to voicemail, already knowing. Sure enough, that chime came a minute later. Marcus looked curious as I hit speaker. Lorraine's voice filled the kitchen, all honey and thorns. "Danielle, baby, we need to talk, woman to woman, like family should." A pause, ice cubes clinking. "All this legal mess, it's not good for anyone. You don't want to have regrets you can't paint over, sugar. Call me back. Soon." Marcus's eyes were wide. I held his gaze and pressed delete without hesitation. The message vanished with a satisfying beep. Outside, the porch light flickered against the gathering dark. Sunday was coming, and with it, truth in black and white for everyone to read. But right now, it was just me and my boy, pizza grease on our fingers, sharing the kind of quiet that feels like victory. "More cheese sticks?" I offered, and his grin was answer enough. Sunday morning light filtered through my kitchen blinds, carrying the soft rumble of early traffic. I was already on my second cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. Sarah Chen's text lit up the screen. "Front page. Printing now." My heart did this funny little skip. You ever have one of those moments where you know everything's about to change? That's what it felt like, sitting there with that steaming mug, watching the world wake up like it was any other day. I slipped on my church clothes, that navy dress Mama always liked, and drove to Coleman's corner store. Mr. Coleman was just cutting the plastic ties on the newspaper bundles when I walked in. That fresh ink smell hit me like a wave of memory. Mama used to say Sunday papers were still warm with truth. "Give me 2 copies, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He raised an eyebrow. Nobody buys 2 papers anymore, but didn't comment. Back in my car, I spread the first copy across the steering wheel. There it was, right at the top of the front page. Family estate fraud exposed. Matriarch's will suppressed in property scheme. The subtitle mentioned forged signatures and stolen heirlooms. My hands got steadier as I read each paragraph, like truth was finally finding its level after years of being tilted wrong. You know what felt sweetest? How clean it all read. No drama, no accusations, just facts laid out in black and white. Dates, documents, expert opinions. Sarah Chen had done her homework. There was even a quote from the county clerk about significant irregularities in the property transfer. I pulled out my phone and positioned Mama's photo, the one from her garden, smiling with those roses she loved, next to the article. Clicked. Added a quick message to Miss Ruthie. "Thank you for keeping faith. Look what your courage helped do." Sent the whole thing with hands that didn't shake at all. My email pinged while I was still parked there. The county recorder's office, confirming they'd flagged the deed history for review and escalated it to their legal team. A calendar invite followed. Wednesday at 10 a.m., formal restoration filing. Just like that, bureaucracy was working the way it should, turning its slow wheels toward justice. My phone started buzzing, Lorraine's name lighting up the screen like a warning. I watched it fade to missed call without moving a finger. When the voicemail notification popped up, I deleted it unopened. Some voices don't deserve another chance to twist the truth. Instead, I pulled out my planning notebook, the one with Mama's pressed flower bookmark, and started a fresh page. At the top, I wrote, "Repairs for Mama's house," in my neatest handwriting. The kind of writing she taught me, careful and clear. Opening my tablet, I pulled up a browser and typed "Porch Repair DIY." Another tab for exterior paint brands. A third for "Restore Original Hardwood Floors." Each search felt like unwrapping a gift we'd been denied too long. The paint samples page loaded, and I remembered Mama talking about the original color scheme. "White trim makes a house look loved," she'd say. I circled those words in my notebook, adding Benjamin Moore Swiss coffee from the recommended list. My coffee had gone cold, but I didn't mind. The morning sun was hitting the car windows just right, warming everything like a promise. I touched Mama's photo on my phone screen, her smile still bright after all these years. "Ready when you are, Mama," I whispered, and meant it down to my bones. Wednesday morning came with a sky so blue it hurt to look at. I dressed carefully, charcoal pants suit, pearl studs Mama left me, hair smoothed into a neat twist. Professional, but not trying too hard. You learn these things, growing up black in spaces that weren't built for you. The county building hadn't changed since last week, same granite steps, same brass revolving door. But walking in felt different this time. "Miss," Ruthie met me in the lobby, church hat tilted just so, carrying a leather portfolio I recognized from Mama's study. "Your mother would be proud," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "She always said patience was your superpower." The recorder's conference room looked exactly like you'd expect. Outdated wood paneling, fluorescent lights that made everyone a little green. But I didn't care about the aesthetics. I cared about Mrs. Chen, the chief, title examiner, spreading documents across the table with careful hands. "Mrs. Monroe," she said, looking up through reading glasses. "We've reviewed the evidence thoroughly. The will's authenticity is confirmed, and the signature analysis clearly shows irregularities in the transfer documents." She pushed a stack of papers toward me. "We'll need your sworn statement, then we can process the corrective deed. Have you ever had to describe betrayal under oath? It's strange, turning years of hurt into calm, factual sentences. But that's what I did, keeping my voice steady as I detailed dates, documents, conversations that burned like acid in my memory. The notary's stamp felt final somehow, thunk, thunk, thunk on multiple copies. Mrs. Chen collected them efficiently, then handed me a thin manila envelope. "Your certified order and new deed," she said. "The property is officially restored to your name, as your mother intended." She paused, then added more softly, "We've also flagged Ms. Patterson's other transactions for review." I clutched that envelope all the way to my car, feeling its weight against my chest like gold. No, heavier than gold. This was Mama's legacy, finally back where it belonged. The drive to the house, our house now, took exactly 12 minutes. I know because I counted each one, trying to steady my breathing. The key stuck a little in the lock, like it was testing my resolve. That first step inside? Lord. The dust and emptiness hit first, but underneath. There it was. Lemon oil from Mama's furniture polish, and just a whisper of her favorite lilac perfume, like her spirit had been waiting. You want to know the funny thing about claiming what's yours? How quickly your eyes start seeing what needs doing. The porch paint was chipping, worse than I remembered, balusters loose enough to worry a safety inspector. Even the mailbox hung crooked, like it had gotten tired of standing guard. I didn't waste time feeling sorry about the work ahead. Instead, I drove straight to Harrison's Hardware, filled my cart with painting supplies, brushes, rollers, that blue tape that doesn't bleed, a gallon of exterior white paint that cost more than my first church hat but promised coverage Mama would approve of. Back at the house, I worked my phone like a general organizing troops. Locksmith scheduled for 2 p.m. Yes, all external doors, please. Called the utility companies one by one. Email folder open to attach the court order copies. Even remembered to update the tax assessor's office because Mama raised me to handle details right. I texted Miss Ruthie and Deanna while I spread drop cloths on the porch. Quick blessing after school? Pickup? No speeches needed, just your smiles. They both responded with heart emojis and on our way. The clouds were starting to gather, typical Alabama afternoon, when I heard it. Car door slamming at the curb, then that sound. You know the one. Expensive heels on concrete, clicking like a timer counting down. I stepped out onto the porch, blue painter's tape stuck to my wrist like a discount bracelet and roller gripped maybe a little. Tighter than necessary. You ever notice how some moments feel like photographs waiting to happen? This was one of those. Me on the top step, Lorraine at the gate, both of us frozen in the heavy afternoon air. She'd traded her usual flashy style for dark sunglasses and a beige pantsuit that seemed to shrink her somehow. No designer bag swinging, no jangling bracelets. Just her hands clasped in front of her like she was at a funeral she hadn't been invited to. "You know why I'm here," she said, voice flat as week-old champagne. I kept that top porch step between us, my free hand resting on the railing Mama had sealed every spring. Keys, remotes, any mail that came here with my mother's name on it. A muscle jumped in her jaw, but she reached into her pocket and pulled out a jangling ring, heavy with brass and silver. A plastic key fob followed, probably for the garage door she'd installed last summer. She held them out like they burned. "You didn't have to do it this way," she said, that familiar note of blame creeping in. "Putting family business out there for everyone to see. Your mama would have—" "Don't," I cut her off, calm as Sunday morning. Reached into my back pocket and pulled out the newspaper, already folded to show the headline. "You did this part yourself." The sunglasses hid her eyes, but I saw her throat work as she swallowed. For a second, just one, I thought she might actually apologize. Instead, she turned on those expensive heels and walked away, straight-backed as ever. No scene, no threats. Just silence and the click of retreating footsteps. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Funny how victory can feel so quiet sometimes. Inside, I dropped the keys in a glass bowl I'd labeled house in my neatest handwriting. Mama always said organization was next to godliness, or maybe that was cleanliness, but either way, she'd have approved. Back on the porch, I dipped the roller in that pristine white paint. First stroke felt like drawing a line between then and now, past and future, wrong and right. The wood soaked it up eager, like it had been waiting. "Mama," Marcus's voice carried from the sidewalk. He was grinning under his cap, and I noticed his fingers doing that unconscious thing, tracing where his curls were starting to come back in, like checking on a garden. "Hey, baby." I set the roller down. "How was school?" "Good. Miss Peterson liked my science project." He looked around the porch, taking in the drop cloths and paint cans. "We really gonna live here?" "That's the plan. Want to help me pick out a plant for that corner? Something tough that likes shade?" He studied the empty spot where Mama's old fern used to live. "Can we get another one like Big Fred?" I had to smile. Trust Marcus to remember the name Mama gave that stubborn Boston fern that refused to die, even when she forgot to water it. "Sure thing. We'll find one just as determined." My phone buzzed while I was laying down another stripe of white. The notification showed the charity board's public page, the one where Lorraine had served as treasurer for 15 years. You know that moment when you're about to open something important? When your finger hovers over the screen and your breath catches a little? That's where I was, roller dripping white onto the drop cloth while cicadas started their evening song. I clicked. The charity board's statement filled my screen, each word landing like a gavel strike. Following review of documentation provided by county authorities, the board announces the immediate removal of Lorraine Jenkins from her position as treasurer due to ethical violations inconsistent with our mission of community trust. My phone buzzed again. County Recorder's Office. The email confirmed what the certified letter would say. Deed correction recorded, title restored, case closed. Just like that, Lorraine's careful tower of lies came down from both sides. No drama, no shouting. Just truth doing what truth does when you give it room to work. I sat, my phone on the porch rail next to a patch of fresh paint, watching Marcus crouch by his new fern. He was poking at the fronds gentle as could be, letting them brush his wrist. When one tickled him just right, He let out that pure kid laugh I hadn't heard since before the reunion. Made my heart squeeze in the best way. "Want to try the roller?" I asked, holding it out. "Just like we practiced on paper." He nodded, serious as Sunday school, and took it carefully. His first stroke wavered a little, but the second one, straight as morning light. I watched him work, noticed how his curls were already starting to spring back under his cap. Nature knows what it's doing, I thought. Everything grows back in its time. The paint was drying even in the late afternoon heat, turning from glossy to that perfect matte finish that makes you want to run your fingers over it. Marcus had his tongue stuck out the side of his mouth, concentrating hard on keeping his lines neat, just like his mama taught him. "Looking good, baby," I said, and meant both the paint and him. Inside, I had a mission. Took the Sunday paper, the one with Lorraine's exposure front and center, and found a simple black frame at the bottom of my craft box. Next to it went the certified deed, proof in plain legal language that what was stolen had been returned. Both documents told the same story. Truth might take its time, but it always finds its way home. I hung them in the front room where the light hit just right. Not to gloat, Mama raised me better than that, but to remember. Sometimes you need a marker for the moment when things turned right again. Back on the porch, that white trim was doing exactly what I'd hoped, gleaming like a clean breath, like a new page. The breeze carried hints of lilac from the neighbor's yard, mixing sweet with the sharp scent of fresh paint. Felt like the past settling, not with fanfare but with quiet certainty. There was this little ceramic dish Mama used to keep by the kitchen window, painted with morning glories. I'd found it wrapped in newspaper at the bottom of my box of saved things. Now it sat on the windowsill, holding a spare key I'd had cut that morning. Might sound simple, but that dish and that key, they were my quiet little altar to getting free. Marcus had finished his section of railing and was studying it with his head tilted, artist style. I squeezed his shoulder, feeling him lean into me like he used to before he decided he was too grown for such things. Together we looked out over our block now for real and for true. The porch looked reborn in the softening light. White trim against weathered wood, new fern dancing in the breeze, everything fresh, but somehow still carrying echoes of what Mama built here. Marcus reached up and adjusted his cap, those spring-back curls peeking out around the edges. "Mama," he said, "I think we did good." I smiled, remembering Mama's voice clear as crystal. "You know what your grandma always said? Dignity grows back stronger than hair."